Is that normally your warm-up before the podcast starts?
No, what I usually do before the podcast is I drink a pot of black coffee, I do 6 shots of bourbon, and then I purge.
Well, then I think you're ready to go. Let's start. Welcome to another episode of Mostly True Alien Stories.
They're coming.
UFO Sightings. Many Americans have wondered about the dangers of unknown objects.
In Mexico, pulling back the curtain. We need to save ourselves.
All right, welcome back to Mostly True Alien Stories, where we dive into history's most mind-bending alien encounters and see if they hold up to scrutiny. I'm Neil Giardola, and of course, across state lines, my co-host is Andrew Triana.
Hi, buddy.
On today's episode, we're going to take a closer look at one of the most unsettling alien abduction cases that have ever been reported. It's the Pascagoula Alien Abduction incident, where 2 guys, a quiet night of fishing, and then something unexplainable, a strange noise, bizarre creatures, and a story that actually has been debated for decades. And this one's got all the elements of a classic UFO encounter, but will it hold up to closer examination once we dive into that story? We're going to find out about all of that. Of course, before we get into the night that turned fishing into something pretty weird, let's hand it over to Andrew for the latest in alien news and entertainment. Andrew, what is the latest on sightings and stories making waves right now?
Making waves right now, Neil, is astronomers stumble across a bizarre UFO galaxy cloaked
Really?
in cosmic dust.
Wait, they found a new galaxy?
Kind of, yeah. Let me tell you about it. It's University of Colorado in Boulder. They're aiming to uncover a peculiar class of galaxies known as the ultra-red flattened objects, or UFOs. Unlike unidentified flying objects, these UFOs are unusually large. They're red-hued galaxies that have captured the attentions of researchers for many, many years.
So in the galaxy, they're seeing these disc-like UFOs, that
They're
kind of thing?
seeing something that they're calling UFOs. They're red flattened objects. They're really not sure what they are.
And just covered in this cosmic dust.
Just in cosmic dust. Yeah, the researchers explain that the UFOs are odd cosmic ducks for several reasons. For one, they exist near the observational limit of earlier space instruments, such as the Hubble Space Telescope.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Hubble completely missed them because these galaxies emit very little visible light.
Is that because of the dust?
Because of the dust and because of the distance.
Okay.
So as a result, the UFO galaxies were all but invisible. Visible light. The Hubble telescope only records visible light. So the Webb telescope, in contrast, collects infrared light. So who cares about the Hubble? That's old news. That's like when you hear people say, you're better than sliced bread. Well, what was there before sliced bread? There was just a loaf, right? So now it's like the Hubble. That's what I'm going to use.
People were just ripping bread apart.
Yeah, they just tore it. They didn't even cut it.
Yeah.
Now it's
and then somebody's like, "Hey, I can cut this," and everybody's like, "Woo!" No, I think they embraced it, right? They're just like, "This is better than torn bread."
This is better than tearing bread. Hey, remember when we used to tear bread?
Oh my God, what were we thinking?
Man, we've advanced. Look how advanced we are.
Well, you know what? This is as bad as looking through a Hubble telescope, brother.
Can it get any worse? Why don't you advance yourself and get a Webb telescope?
Remember when we used to look through the Hubble?
What was better than the Hubble telescope?
I love that they're calling it the UFO galaxy.
Well, that's because the big red discs, they don't know what they are.
Right.
This is really cool. Did you know that New York State ranks 5th in the U.S. for UFO sightings and alien encounters? So get your tinfoil hats on.
Yeah, I didn't know it was 5th. I thought maybe it'd be higher. I thought it'd be like in the top 3, but it's top 5. Number 1 is California. Florida is number 2. Washington is number 3, so that's Washington State.
Washington State, not D.C.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
And then Texas, number 4. And then New York, number 5. Yeah, so California had 16,000 sightings over the past 29 years.
Holy moly.
Yeah,
Wow.
and then to put it in perspective, I guess New York had almost 6,500 reported sightings over that time period.
Wow.
I would think it would be more.
It feels like it would be more.
The more states with larger populations probably have more.
Yeah, that's probably what they're basing it off.
Yeah.
More people, like North
Right.
Dakota. I mean, there's nobody there.
Right. But they're probably per capita, there's probably more sightings. Like there's probably everybody's getting abducted out there and they just don't count it because
Yeah, they're slaughtering cows and they're being abducted. That's crazy. So here's an interesting statistic since you brought that up. There is one UFO sighting for every 1,301 people in the Empire State in New York. If we were part of 1,301 people, one of us would see a UFO.
Incredible
Those are
stats.
great odds. I think I'm going to move back to New York.
Well, then it'll be 1,302.
And did you know what today is?
First day of spring?
Better.
What is it?
See, I'm going to be the first person that ever wished this to you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
National Alien Abduction Day.
Today is.
Today is March 20th.
You know what? This is a shame because this should have been bigger news. We're going to make that a big holiday every year. We got to make that a big holiday every year. National Alien Abduction Day. Dude, what are you doing? I'm taking the day off. I'm taking the day off for National Alien Abduction Day.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be celebrated. Has to be celebrated.
It says that nobody is actually ever abducted on March 20th. Out of respect, the aliens know that those people that celebrate it, out of respect, do not abduct anybody.
So wait, is that a true reporting?
That's not a true report. I just made it up. Sounds nice, right? Look, everybody makes the aliens out to be bad, right? They're coming for us. Oh, they're going to get us.
No, that's not true. We haven't shared a story where the alien has been bad. We've only shared stories where the people that are involved in the encounter take it as a threat. So we're not making these aliens out to be, it's just our reaction to the alien encounter itself that is horrifying from our perspective when it actually, if they just calm the F down and take a look, maybe the aliens are not going to be mean.
And all the stories that we've read and things that no one's ever said, the first thing I did was I wanted to hug them.
Right.
What happened
Just
to the hug? Or a friendly handshake?
Yeah.
Or a freaking friendly handshake.
So those are two great stories so far. What do we got? What's next?
A Tic Tac UFO was spotted on Mars. NASA photos caused a frenzy online. So the shocking discovery was made by the NASA Mars Curiosity rover cam before the image was posted to Reddit, sending space fanatics into a frenzy.
It does look like the Tic Tac.
It looks like a Tic Tac
UFO. Yeah, that definitely does. And then it even looks like it's hovering because of the way the shadows are situated in the frame of the picture. And then they actually have two different time stamps of that same location. So earlier, nothing, and then same location, timestamp later, and that's there. Is NASA disputing this, or what are they saying?
They're not really saying much about it. Viewers replied comparing it to the notorious Tic Tac UFO sighting that went viral a few years ago.
So David Fravor and his crew who spotted that Tic Tac shape, that's where we were first introduced to it. It looks just like that. And that's what they're referring to, that years ago, this is what they saw. But on Mars itself, this was the first time.
One excited alien guy said, this is exciting because it's a testable prediction, meaning that if that thing ain't there when we come back, it's fucking aliens.
Yeah, but it's not there now.
No, it's gone.
Well, from what we're seeing, it's not there. So we don't know if this has been doctored or anybody's put anything in there, but that's what I want to find out is what is NASA actually saying? Because I haven't seen that report. I think they did make a comment, but I'm not sure. I haven't found it yet. So this is pretty cool. If that's really there, what does that mean? What does it mean, man?
Are they on Mars? Are they coming for us?
They probably, their group, that alien company said, hey, make sure you do a flyby in front of the rover. Let's get on camera, man. That was like a dare.
Come in there, buddy. Are you there? The rover's over there. Can you do a quick flyby?
I'm going to do it right now. But you know what? We did this before and they didn't get us.
Rover's looking right at you right now, buddy. Good, buddy. Can you pause? Good.
Yeah.
Looking good.
All right.
Looking good. Now speed away. Speed away.
Right,
Speed up.
I'm going.
Good.
I'm going to go back to Earth and I'm going to fuck with Fravor. I do love the story because I love the fantasy of it. If that is true, that's like probably what would be one of the first valid moments
actual
in identifying
moments.
a UFO.
But I mean, looking online and looking for UFO stuff, it's if our listeners are listening, stop doing the AI stuff, please.
You're really confusing Andrew. He's a non-believer, but you're making him believe, and AI is fooling him all the time.
It is.
All right, what else you got?
Kacey Musgraves.
What about her?
Pop star. She apparently has seen UFOs. She recalled being in Mexico for a friend's wedding when she noticed something strange. I noticed something hovering above the corner of the hotel in the night sky. It kind of looked like the underbelly of a bird. You
Okay.
couldn't really see what it was. You know how around the outside edge of the hotel, there's sometimes, those floodlights and stuff?
Yeah, sure.
She says, whatever it was shined on, and I was very confused by it. So I said, y'all, what's that? We all watched it for a minute. Then it changed shape into an X pattern, like a windmill shape,
Sounds like an orb.
and flew off.
Yeah, it sounds like an orb.
And she said just days after that first sighting, she said she saw 2 giant balls of fire hovering above the city of Nashville.
Where was she when she saw this first one?
The first one was in Mexico. She was at a friend's wedding. And
Okay.
so
And
other
what-
people that were with her saw it, saw
Oh, they
this
did?
X-shaped thing.
Those were witnesses. So
Other witnesses.
it was in Mexico or New Mexico?
It was in Mexico.
When was this?
I think it was 2015 is when it happened.
She hadn't blown up onto the circuit yet. I think she was kind of just starting to do
She was
openings
just starting, and
on
she didn't
stage.
report this until 2019. So it wasn't like she was using this story to get her
Yeah.
fame.
True. You think it's mostly true?
She has recently said that she has stopped smoking marijuana. You know what her code name is, right? Space Cowgirl.
All right. Well, that's cool. Anything else?
I got a movie recommendation.
Oh, yes. I love your movie recommendations. What is it?
Probably written by 2 of my favorite writers and comedic actors, Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, the guys that brought us Shaun of the Dead. This one is called Paul.
I remember Paul. That was in 2011.
Yeah, 2011. It's pretty funny because Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, man, when they're together, it's nonstop laugh.
Seth Rogen played the
Seth
alien or
Rogen is
something?
the voice of Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Seth Rogen
Yeah.
is the voice of Paul. It also stars Kristen Wiig, Jane Lynch. It's got a huge cast in it.
They were on a road trip or something. I can't remember.
So
were
yeah, so they
geek-
go to Area 57. They're there for like they're comic book nerds, and they're also UFO nerds, and they're there for a huge convention. And they meet this alien who has decided that he doesn't want to stay at Area 51 anymore. He wants to go
Mhm.
home.
Right.
And
And is
so-
the alien, wasn't he like foul mouthed and like
Oh, he's awful.
surprisingly human like? And
Yeah, he's pretty funny. There's a scene in the movie where Paul gets this dead bird, right? And he brings it back to life, and then he eats it.
that's very funny. I don't think I watched the movie all the way through. I remember watching it when it kind of came out, but I don't remember it so much.
Streaming on Peacock. You can watch it on Peacock.
All right, now we're all caught up. Is that it? Is that all you got?
That's all I got, man.
All right, just a quick refresher for how this show goes down. I'm going to tell the full account of a reported alien phenomenon exactly as it was documented. And then Andrew and I will break it down and see if we think this one is mostly true or just an epic story spun out of control. And we definitely want to hear from you guys, our listeners. So make sure you drop your thoughts into the comments of each episode. All right, let's get into it. This is the Pascagoula Alien Abduction. So it was October 11th, 1973. It was late evening in Pascagoula, Mississippi, which was it's a small coastal town. It's hugged by these meandering Pascagoula River. On this night, it was so thick and humid, it was like clinging to the skin like a wet blanket. And there was a sliver of the moon. It hung low in the sky, and the insects hummed in the darkness.
Cricket,
Yep.
cricket, like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So for Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, it was just supposed to be a night of fishing and nothing more. But Hickson, who was a 42-year-old foreman at a local shipyard, he invited his young coworker, who was a 19-year-old guy by the name of Calvin Parker, to unwind by the river after a long day at work. So they worked all day, and their idea was, hey, let's go fishing. So the two men weren't exactly close friends. They were more colleagues than buddies. But Hickson, who is a Vietnam veteran with a gritty demeanor, had taken Calvin under his wing since the younger man was new to the shipyard and trying to settle into life in Pascagoula. That's nice of them.
Yeah, sure.
That night, they picked a secluded spot on the west bank of the Pascagoula River and
Sounds
just
romantic.
under the highway, 90 Bridge. It was a highway that ran over the river, obviously. And the river was calm and quiet, except for the occasional splash of fish breaking the surface. Calvin was nervous. It was his first fishing trip with Hickson. This is according to the report.
He was nervous to go fishing with this guy. What did he think this guy was going to do? Jump in the water?
I don't know. It sounds like if you got an older coworker that has been working at a shipyard longer than him, and you're new, and he's going to come up to you and he's going to go, "Hey, we're going fishing tonight. make sure you bring your rod to work. And he's like, okay.
Are you sure? He's like, I always got my rod with me.
They probably all had their fishing rods in their trucks, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
In the report, because he was nervous, and it was his first fishing trip with Hickson. So he wasn't much of an outdoorsman, this guy, Calvin. But Hickson, on the other hand, he seemed at ease. He was content to sip his beer and cast his line. So, this was probably something he did all the time.
Mhm.
They'd been there for about an hour and chatting lazily and listening to the night sounds when something caught their attention. A bluish light appeared across the water, casting a faint glow that danced on the rippling surface. And at first, they thought it was a patrol car from across the river. But when the light suddenly intensified, they knew it was something completely different. So both men turned to look at what they see, this light coming, and that's when they saw it. It's a large oval-shaped craft hovering just a few feet above the riverbank, and it was completely silent and emitting a strange glow. And before they could react, the craft began gliding towards them like it was floating on air. And so Hickson immediately drops his fishing rod. They're nervous. His heart starts pounding. And Calvin, rooted to the spot, he couldn't move a muscle. He was nervous as they get.
He was nervous enough already going fishing with this guy he'd never gone fishing with.
Right.
But now he's even more nervous because he saw something he's never seen before.
Right. It's always something they've never seen before. Right. I was even more nervous. So now the craft comes to a smooth stop about 30 feet away from them. And then a hatch opens with this hissing sound, according to the report. 3 figures emerge. The beings were around 5 feet tall with gray, wrinkled skin that resembled an elephant's hide. So their bodies were bulky and humanoid, but they had no visible necks, according to this report. And their heads were shaped like bullets. That's what they described. Where their faces should have been, there were just these slits where the mouth and eyes would be. And instead of hands, they had these lobster-like pincers. They were clicking rhythmically as they approached. They're like, that's so crazy.
God. Okay.
But Hickson later described their movement in his report as floating. They were just floating above the ground, almost like they were being pulled along by some invisible force. And their legs remained stiff and immobile, giving them this sort of unnatural, eerie quality. What a sight to see, man.
So, so they're there, they're looking, the hatch opens.
Yeah.
And then these guys come out and they're like,
they're like, they got slits for eyes and mouths. And they're only 5 feet tall. They probably looked a little taller because they're floating, but
I bet those clicking sounds was Morse code.
You think that's how they were communicating with each other? Like,
yeah, they were trying to communicate.
Get the little one, you grab the big guy.
No, I think they were communicating to Calvin.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we don't know about if there was any telepathy or
anything. But they couldn't understand. No, but they were doing through the Morse code.
Like they were trying to talk to him. Like, everything's okay, dude. It's okay. We just want to be friends.
We are friends. Click, click, click. Friends. Click, click, click.
Like they looked at each other and were like, he doesn't understand what we're saying.
Then they were like, click, 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 click.
Yeah, and he was like, he's so nervous.
Why is he so nervous? Click, click, click. He has a great rod. Click, 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 click. The other guy's rod is better. Click, click, click.
We're here to save him from the old guy. Click, click, click. Yeah. Yeah. As the beings drew closer, both men were suddenly paralyzed. So I could imagine. If I would see something like that, I guess I would. My first instinct would be.
Dude, first I probably pissed my pants.
And then shit them.
Fucking things don't even have eyes. They got these pointy things, right? A slit. They're not talking.
I might shit myself first.
Yeah, I would shit myself first.
Like, all right, I might as well piss myself now.
I'm done. I'm done. Take me now. Good luck back there. Good luck. It's a mess, but you can get it if you want it.
All right. So the boys are paralyzed, right? They're not, these guys are coming at him. Hickson would later describe it as feeling that his muscles were like locked up. Like just, I guess, I don't know. I guess there's probably a name for it. Maybe not atrophy but it was more catatonic maybe, but I don't know.
Okay.
Like he said that his entire body had turned to stone. So I wonder if the aliens were doing that to him, or if it was just they were just so frozen with fear. That's the feeling you get, maybe.
The result of fear.
Yeah. And poor little Calvin. Calvin tried to scream, but nothing came out. He was going to scream bloody murder.
If he was going to scream, he'd be like, clickers! I just shit my pants.
One of the creatures, in fact, clamped a pincer around Hickson's arm, and he felt a sharp, cold sensation. And then the being literally lifted him effortlessly.
Damn.
And then the other two did the same thing to Calvin. They grabbed him, and then Calvin, he wanted to scream, but he couldn't. So instead, he fainted.
That guy's a wuss, man. Seriously?
Yeah,
He faints now because they grabbed him?
Oh my God. He couldn't. He wanted to scream, he couldn't. And then he faints. This is the worst fishing partner ever.
Think about it, man. If he was trying to scream, right, that means that he couldn't bring in air either. And forcing himself to try to scream, he passed out because of that.
Yeah, he hyperventilated.
He hyperventilated, yeah.
So anyway, Hickson remained, he was semi-conscious. So
He was
Hickson
awake, right? He's awake through this whole thing, right?
Yeah, the old guy. So, and he was aware of his surroundings, but he was unable to resist. So at some point you get your wits about you, and I imagine you'd be able to move, but he couldn't. He was unable to resist.
Was he just like, fuck it, just take me?
Well, he was probably like, my fishing partner's a wuss. There's got to be more
passes
fun on
out,
the ship.
Shit himself and passed out. Man, I tell you, if we get out of this, he's going to give me that fishing rod.
The beings, they carry them both into the craft, and they floated them through the open hatch. So these guys weren't being dragged. They're literally lifted
flying
off the ground
Yeah.
and floated into
So
the
it must
ship.
have felt awesome.
I think if you could relax and really just take a big deep breath and take it in, I bet it would have been cool.
Instead of
Maybe.
trying to fight.
Yeah. I mean, it's happening. Just let it just let it happen.
I would have been thinking the whole time, you can fly, you can fly, you can fly. I'm Peter Pan.
Peter Pan the alien. So the interior, so now they're in the craft, and they explained that the interior was brightly lit, it had a blinding white glow emanating from all directions, yet there didn't seem to be any specific light source. We hear this a lot in reports of interiors of spaceships.
If aliens, if you're listening, can you stop with the freaking minimalism in your interior design?
We are so very ahead of our designs and our ships that we'll use a special design of our ships to make it very minimalist, very streamlined, very brightly lit.
You like it here.
We like it. We like it very much. I don't know what's the matter with you Americans.
I don't get it. But they're all described basically the same. Cold stainless steel, lights.
You think that's a shock reaction? You think it's like, when you're like passing out, you see bright lights?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't know. I've never passed out, so I don't know. Have you passed out?
Yeah, I passed out when I was abducted.
Did you shit yourself when you were?
Oh no, I was passed out.
You know what? We got to do an episode about your abduction then, because this is all news to me. I would never have known this.
It wasn't from aliens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. All right, so there didn't seem to be any specific light source. The walls were smooth and metallic, and they curved upward like the inside of an egg. In fact, the ship was shaped sort of like an egg itself. So Hickson, he was placed on, the old guy, he was placed on a flat examination table. He's still unable to move his limbs. A thin metallic arm-like device emerges from the ceiling, and then it began to whir and click as it scanned him from head to toe. So he's getting a full-on scan by these guys.
That was great. He got a checkup.
You could feel this pressure on his skin, like tiny pricks running up and down his body. And then another device descended, and that resembled a large glowing eye. And that moved in front of his face, and it scanned him intently.
Oh, wow.
And then through the corner of, Hickson could see through the corner of his vision, through the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Calvin, poor guy who was passed out. He was on another table. He's still unconscious. And the other two beings examined him with the same methodical precision, using the same sort of instruments. So now this entire experience seemed to last just a few minutes, according to their report. But when the beings were finished, they simply floated Hickson and Parker back outside. They set them down gently on the riverbank, as they described it. And then the craft, it just rose slowly and shot off into the sky at this incredible speed, leaving nothing behind but this faint, fading glow. So the two men are sitting there, and they're stunned in silence, trying to make sense of what just happened. Calvin, of course, he's come to now, and he's shaking uncontrollably. He's on the verge of hysteria.
Oh, he just woke up.
Yeah. And Hickson struggled to calm him down. He's trying to calm him down. He's holding him gently, and he's trying to ground himself.
Get a grip.
he's trying to calm Calvin down, but at the same time, he's trying to get himself back to reality.
Yeah.
Mentally. He didn't know what the shit happened. So now Hickson and Parker, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, regained their composure and realized they were physically unharmed, so they weren't hurt. They knew that they needed to report what had happened. So as they sat in, Hickson had driven there, I guess. So they're sitting in he had an old Plymouth. Their hands are shaking uncontrollably, and they debated their next move. Hickson, despite his own terror, he just took over. Of course, he's the older guy. He's the only one.
Right. He's going to be like, we were abducted.
Right. Well, he knew that keeping quiet wasn't going to be an option. Right. So they needed to report the incident to the authorities. And Calvin, who was visibly pale, visibly shaken, he wasn't so sure. He just argued it a little bit. He didn't want to go report it. He wanted to go home. He wanted to lock the doors. He wanted to forget the whole thing had happened. But Hickson he got firm about it. He said, listen, if we don't report this, people are going to think we're crazy when it does get out. So it's better to come clean right now. So they headed straight to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office in Pascagoula. And it was just after 10:30 p.m. now. And they walked through the doors, and there he is, Sheriff Fred Diamond and Captain Glenn Ryder. They were on duty. They looked up, surprised to see two grown men in such a state of distress. So obviously they looked like they were in distress. Hickson and Parker try to explain what happened. And of course, the officers are completely skeptical.
They're like, whatever, boy.
That's exactly right. He's eyeing them up real warily, and he suspects they were either on alcohol or drugs or both. And Diamond's first question was, you boys been drinking? That's in the report, written just like that. You boys been drinking?
No, sir. Maybe I had a beer or two, a couple Quaaludes.
Well, that's exactly what Hickson responded, because he says, no, sir. We haven't touched a drop. We've been out fishing. So I guess it's a rule for Hickson when he goes fishing, he's not going to drink or do drugs when he's fishing.
Because God knows what's happened to him before, dude. He's anxious. He's nervous about going fishing with people. Who knows what happened to him before?
Hickson wasn't nervous about it. Calvin was nervous about it. But Hickson, but when he says, no, sir, we haven't touched a drop, we've been out fishing. I don't know if I would, it's one of those moments where, okay, so you've been fishing. What does that have to do with not drinking?
Well, I usually give him a roofie and then, no, never. Oh, no, did I say that? Sorry.
Whenever I take my young boys fishing, I usually roofie them first.
And then I'll give him a beer.
But I don't touch nothing.
No, I don't. No.
Oh, no.
Doesn't allow it. Does a little erectile dysfunction. I don't want any of that dysfunction.
All right. So detectives, Diamond and Ryder, they decided to now, let's separate these guys. We'll question them individually to see if their stories match up. To their surprise, both men recounted nearly identical experiences, described the strange lights over the water to the pincer-like hands of the creatures. But Sheriff Diamond still remained unconvinced. He's got a better plan now. He decides he's going to secretly record the two men when they were left alone together in the interrogation.
Oh, he's going to try to catch them in something.
We're going to see if these boys are lying. So if they were faking, he figured they'd drop the act when they thought no one was listening to them.
Got it.
So what he captured on that tape was not the sound of men conspiring to pull off a hoax. It was two terrified men trying to make sense of what had just happened to them. And in fact, those tapes actually exist. You can actually find those tapes. They have
the Hickson tapes. They're called the Hickson tapes.
The Hickson tapes. That's right. And in the secret tapes, the audio recording was, a lot of people say it's chilling to listen to even now. I listened to it. It is a little chilling. It reveals two men genuinely terrified, trying to rationalize their experience. Yeah. So Hickson on the tape says, this is while they're alone together in the room. Hickson says, who's the older guy, he says, I know what I saw and it was real. I swear to God it was real. And Parker says, they didn't hurt me, but I don't ever want to go through that again. I was scared to death. I mean, I still am. They could come back. These are excerpts. This isn't the exact in order.
Right. No, it's a long. It's a pretty long. It's very long. It's like 25 minutes long, I think.
Right. So I'm summarizing some of the stuff. And Hickson also said, I just want to get it off my mind, but it ain't never going to be gone. And Parker says, what are we going to do if nobody believes us? And that's kind of sad, that line, too, because Parker does go on to have a pretty tough go. We'll get into it. So the tone of their voices told Diamond and Ryder everything they needed to know. These men were not fabricating the story. And if they were, they deserved Oscars for their acting.
They were nominated, I heard.
If it weren't for Chalamet, they would have had their Oscars. Diamond, the officer, he decided to take their claims seriously, and he contacts Keesler Air Force Base. They're located just 20 miles away in Biloxi, and the Air Force, however, they declined to investigate it. They were stating it was not their jurisdiction since Project Blue Book had ended in 1969. So we're in 73. So Blue Book, who normally investigates this stuff, they ended their run in 1969. So you're 4 years later. So that Blue Book wasn't going to investigate it.
And there's no other agency that's going to investigate this because Blue Book is done.
Yeah, so Blue Book wasn't going to do it. The FBI, they get involved only because afterwards there was this intense media attention, but no FBI documents were ever formally declassified on the incident, and it appeared the FBI did not consider the event a credible threat. NASA's involvement, or you could say lack thereof, due to their proximity, some people speculate that NASA might have taken an interest, but there is no evidence of NASA even in looking into it. And their public stance was that they had no interest or involvement with UFO cases at the time. Government agencies did largely stay out of the investigation. There were several independent researchers and UFO organizations who took on the case, including the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, APRO. They sent investigators to interview Hickson and Parker. They concluded that the men were credible witnesses and that the trauma displayed seemed genuine. And then there's the National Investigations Committee on Aerial Phenomena. They also interviewed the men and found no evidence of a hoax. And then Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was a former Project Blue Book consultant and well-known ufologist, he later reviewed the case and found the testimony compelling, though he didn't officially endorse it. They also did polygraph tests, but they were inconclusive, but it didn't mean that they were lying, and it didn't mean that they were telling the truth. They were just inconclusive. In fact, Calvin Parker was unable to complete his test due to extreme anxiety and emotional distress. So after that night, the sheriff's department did conduct a limited investigation, and they examined the site of the abduction. They found no physical evidence like burn marks or imprint, and there was no radar evidence or corroborating reports that something was flying in the area at the time. When the story leaked to the press, it created an instant media sensation, as everyone predicted. The reporters from all over the state and soon from around the country, they descended on Pascagoula, so it was a big press event. Hickson, despite the public ridicule, because they were being ridiculed over this, remained firm in his story. He gave multiple interviews and even appeared on talk shows.
And Parker did nothing.
Yeah, he went into complete isolation. It was devastating for him, and he was traumatized beyond what anyone could comprehend. While Hickson seemed almost invigorated by the attention, Parker became withdrawn. He was anxious. He was paranoid. Then he refused to talk to the press and wouldn't even discuss it with his own family. He suffered too. He suffered from depression and intense anxiety. He often woke up drenched in sweat from nightmares about the creatures in the metallic examination room. And for over 40 years, he avoided discussing the event. He moved from job to job. He couldn't keep his marriages. He tried to escape the public eye. That was a tough run for him. It wasn't until 2018 that Calvin actually broke his silence, published his own book, Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story.
He didn't do that until Hickson had died.
I don't know, little suspect.
That's kind of weird. That's just weird, boy.
Well,
tell you
maybe.
what.
Maybe. Well, but he in his book, though, he gives a vivid and terrifying account of what happened. He described the terrifying paralysis, the cold grip of the pincers, and the inhuman movements of the beings. He also mentions more vivid memories of the examination, including feeling like something was probing his mind. And he spoke openly about how the trauma haunted him for decades and it prevented him from holding down jobs and relationships. He also revealed that in later years, more witnesses actually came forward, claiming to have seen the strange lights over the river that same very night. So this lent a little more credibility to their story, validating that they hadn't been the only ones who had seen something unusual. Right. There was a big story that was titled UFO Story Causes Sensation. And then because of that article, it was in the Mississippi Press, the men were subjected to ridicule and disbelief. But Hickson refused to stay silent, as I mentioned, and he published his own book as well in 1983.
10 years later, he finished writing his book.
His is called UFO Contact at Pascagoula. And it had some great success, actually. He moderate success, as he claims. So that is the story. And Andrew, now I'm going to ask you to weigh in and let me know if you think this is a mostly true alien story or not. And of course, listeners, we're going to want you to add your thoughts in the comments as well. But now let's hand it off to you, Andrew. Want to fill in any blanks, anything I may have missed? And let's decide whether we think this is a mostly true alien story or not.
This is an interesting story because, it happened to two people. One person was catatonic while the other one was awake, taken on a ship by these robot-like, we can call them like robot-like creatures. They ran tests on them and then they dropped them back on the bank and left. What's interesting is that technically they weren't supposed to be fishing in that area. There's a place nearby that you're allowed to fish, but where they were abducted, they weren't supposed to be
So
fishing.
Hickson had his favorite little fishing hole. He
Yeah,
had a little
I'm going to
secret
say
fishing
he had
hole
his
liked to
own,
go to.
yeah, his own little fishing place. It was interesting that Parker decided that he wasn't really going to talk. Hickson did most of the talking, or all of the talking, which I found very interesting. I also find it weird that a 42-year-old man is taking a 19-year-old boy fishing.
You're going to turn it into that. You're talking about man boy love?
I'm talking about man love and boy love. I just find it fascinating because they weren't really close. Hickson was friends with actually Parker's dad and got him the job at the place where they worked together.
Then what are you questioning? That makes sense. He's going to do his buddy a favor. He's going to take his son out fishing. He's going to, give him a little time.
No, that sounds fun, especially when you're really anxious about the whole thing and really nervous. Like, why was he nervous? Did he get vibes from Hickson? Possibly. Did Parker get some weird vibes from him? Wondering what was going to happen down by the river?
I have a best friend
who's 75 years old, and he used to take you and sit you on his lap and give you Werther's butterscotch. I mean, what?
Go ahead, grab candy out of my pocket, son.
That doesn't feel like that's a whole roll of candy. You'll like that.
Yeah,
roll.
no. I have a buddy who's my age who's offered to take my son to like a basketball game or take him out, to places like that. I mean, I don't question that. I think he's close enough where he's going to say, I'm going to get your son a job, and then I'm going to take your son and go fishing with him under the bridge late at night in a secret spot.
I think this was a gay gone bad.
So that caused them to make up this whole thing?
There's a documentary. You can watch it on Amazon called Pascagoula 73. What's revealed in this documentary is that Parker said nothing for all of these years, right? Yeah. And it wasn't until later in life that he went under hypnosis. And when Parker started telling his part of the story, it became more elaborate and more elaborate and more elaborate than anything Hickson had ever said. Now, Hickson was the only one that was conscious, supposedly, on the spaceship, not Parker. Parker was out.
Hickson's accounting, right? So
yeah, it's Hickson's accounting. Everything has been Hickson's accounting during this whole time, except after Hickson died. Parker came out and he said, oh yeah, no, there was even a female alien on the ship that Parker says he had a confrontation with and bashed her head in. I mean, this is some crazy shit.
Well, he got violent.
Yes, Parker got violent.
So why would he come out with a more elaborate alien abduction story rather than coming out and saying this dude was a freaking weirdo, man?
If you got taken advantage of by a man, you're not going to come out and say that. That's why he was haunted by all this stuff for so long. I think that the blue lights were the police catching them fishing or catching Hickson doing something else. It freaked him out. They thought they got caught, and then he went to the police station. That's what I think. And then you can even spin this another way, that the police were involved in it as well.
They all had fun with little Calvin Parker?
With Calvin Parker.
Yeah, drag him back to cell 7. We'll be in a minute.
I struggle with this story because something happened to Parker. I watched the documentary, and watching him under hypnosis, I don't even know if he's under hypnosis, but he's very emotional. He's very upset. He's angry at whatever happened. And what they're saying is that they just examined them. But his recollection that he does have under hypnosis, under regressive hypnosis, is he's very violent during this thing. So he's definitely angry about something. Now, we know that when people go under regressive hypnosis, one thing that has been implanted in their brain for so long is this UFO alien abduction. It could have been some other repressed feelings that he had where he combines the two things together. That happens all the time in regressive hypnosis.
I don't think you're qualified to comment on that.
Oh, I totally am, dude. I'm a ufologist.
I think you could speculate all you want, but what about the facts of everything? What about the recording in the room?
The recording what, dude? There's a guy, they never said those aliens got us. That's never said in the recordings. There was just like, I know what I saw. I know what happened. That's basically what they said the whole time. They never said those silver things came and they clicked and they grabbed us and they floated us over to the ship. And then one of them threw me on the table and Calvin, fuck, you were asleep. You passed out and shit your pants. There's none of that. There's none of that on that tape. It's them repeating the same thing over and over again, and it's mostly Hicks communicating on the tape. I'm not sure what happened.
But you're
Something-
saying you're not saying it's
I'm
not
not
a mostly true alien
convinced.
story.
I'm not convinced that it's a true alien story.
How is it that you're not leaning away from it, saying it isn't a mostly true alien story? When you came up with this whole man-boy love thing, you went really deep and dark about it. You think it was more of a raping than a freaking alien encounter.
I think it was a fishing trip gone bad.
Wow. But you're not fully convinced.
I'm not fully convinced that Hickson really had a thing for Calvin. Not really sure about that. They might have been abducted. I'm going to say there's a possibility that they were abducted.
This is more broke-back alien.
Here's some other evidence that you didn't know about. Maria Blair was a witness to the abduction. She was actually abducted on the other side of the river. They did the same thing to her. They hadn't met. They did not know each other. But the same thing happened that same night that these two guys were taken.
Why are you hesitant?
That's why I'm going to tell you right now. I think that this is possibly a mostly true alien story.
Holy shit, stop the podcast, because this is a first.
What convinced me was Calvin, was watching the documentary and listening to Calvin. He's terrified. They also have Maria Blair underneath hypnosis as well. She's terrified as well, too. And her husband was there and watched her get taken away. They had no idea because they didn't speak of it. They did not speak of being abducted that night to anybody because they didn't believe.
There's no connection between them.
There's no connection between Hickson and Calvin and Maria Blair. There's no connection. They're not related. They're not friends. They didn't know each other. But it happened on the same night. Plus, there were other people that said that they saw hovering lights over the river that night.
You think this is a mostly true alien story? I love it.
There's too much stuff here to say that it's not. I don't know if they're aliens. Maybe it's the CIA taking them.
All right, you don't need to say anything more. I mean, you can leave it right there. That's okay. Don't be embarrassed. Welcome to the club, the Believers Club, my friend.
I'm not.
This is how it all happens.
No,
this is your starter kit. All right, so let me listen. You made some good points. You filled in some good, valid, missing parts of this. You're not wrong to think it is odd for a 42-year-old man to take a 19-year-old boy who's not related to you fishing.
What do they have in common? One guy's a Vietnam vet, the other guy's not.
You never know. He could be a God-fearing, Christian who wanted to, just be a mentor to this kid. Who you never know what his motives were in that regard. But I guess you could go either way.
He wasn't married either.
Okay, I mean that doesn't mean anything.
He had a Village People mustache,
and he wore a hard hat all the time.
Sometimes no pants.
Yeah. If you really want to dive deep into it and keep it not a weird situation, I think maybe he was friends with his dad and he's just mentoring the kid, trying to get the kid to relax at work. Got him the job and he's like, listen, let's just go fishing, dude. Let's go fishing. So you just become friends, or you come that kind of thing. The aliens show up and they take them. Listen, here's what I'm thinking. I think everything that they shared, I think something definitely happened. I think now that you had that Linda, the Blair side of the story in there as well, I think it's right. You also have the police officers who wouldn't be in on this, and they're they have instincts. They can assess when someone's telling lies, and these guys were scared. I think Calvin disappearing and not wanting to talk about it, I think that validates it even more. I think Hickson, even though he went out and tried to exploit it to make money from it, doesn't mean he made up this story. I think something totally happened. I believe that this is a mostly true alien story, and I am so excited that you do as well. That just made my day. I think our listeners are going to be like, what?
What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, this guy. Make sure y'all follow, subscribe, and tune in next week, because we're going to dig into some more of these bizarre cases. I don't know if Andrew will ever believe that it's a mostly true alien story again, ever in his days. But we want our listeners, please leave a comment. Let us know what you think, whether this is a mostly true alien story or not. And until then, keep your lines tight, your eyes to the sky, and maybe stick to fishing during the day with people of your own age.
That sounds good.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
UFO sightings. Many Americans have wondered about the dangers of unknown objects.